Drop it like.
Cool, yeah. Learn as we go. The restream is pretty intense. Looks like there's 5 people on the Media Slinger page on Twitch.
Hello, everybody. If you're out there, send us a message so we know you're there. Doing the virtual user group meeting, I'm very, very happy to have with me Aaron Holstein,
Hello.
aka Vibe Squad. That was his music you were listening to if you tuned in before 7. We're all really excited to be talking about Ableton Live 9, Ableton Live 11 that's coming out in the beta right now and will be coming out early next year for everybody to play with and make great music with. What do you think about it so far, Aaron?
I'm really excited about it. I think it's great. The few really big things for me have to do with workflow and how I write music. And one of the things we'll be talking about today is the comping feature, and that's definitely something that changes my workflow and gives me all kinds of new possibilities to even practice how I write music and improve the whole process. So I'm really excited about it. Yeah.
I'm thrilled about that too, because, for a while I've said that Ableton Live is my favorite software. It's not quite recording studio software because you can't comp in it, recording drums, things like that. You got to be able to do that. Now it does. When I heard about it, I literally threw my hands up in the air.
yeah and more so even was seeing it, like, it's really elegant. There's comping in other, I've used comping in other software DAW platforms, and it's been around for a really long time, but this is a really just really simple, intuitive way to do it, and that is the best, because you don't have to get tangled up in the comping, which can be a whole headache in itself. Picking takes can be just it's a whole new set of decisions you have to make, and that can be just more daunting. I think in other workstations it's been more daunting to do comping. I've just been like, I'll just try another pass at playing it correctly altogether, you know.
Yeah, why
But
would you want to do that?
right. But there's and when I get to the section of our talk tonight, really talking about that, I'll kind of go through the kind of thought process of how what's different, how you would maybe record differently and what that might do to your performance. Because I think that the new setup is it frees a better performance potentially. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
For somebody recording themselves, it just makes the stress level drop away because
Yeah.
you're not worrying about I have to get it right this time. It's so wonderful. Now for me, of course, Ableton Live 11 is got a ton of new things in it. So this is not going to be let's run through everything. My favorite thing is like clips, what they changed about clips. And it's kind of the same explanation. It really is how it affects my workflow. I 11 has lots of cool features in it that inject a kind of randomness, a kind of variation into what you do. And I've always done that to try and avoid a kind of static kind of feel about the stuff I produce in live. And most people do. And things that used to have to pull in and affect and like dial in some settings. And it's just like built into clips now. So I'm going to go first. So that's the first thing I'm going to show you. And so why don't we just go bam. And this is Ableton Live 11. And if you're looking at it now, you're probably thinking that does not look that much different than Ableton Live 10. And it's misleading. There is a lot different about this, but it's still the same software in the fact that you'll be able to interact with it in the same way. It's not incredibly daunting to get into. There's a couple cool little new things that have shown up, like under the browser here. You can see that now grooves and templates, which a lot of people use, they're right there, totally easy to get to. Under audio effects, things are now grouped in categories. So like sort of overdrive, distortion things like the amp and the redux and the saturator, which used to be so far apart from each other in the list, are now like kind of grouped together. Makes it a little easier. And then both in instruments and effects, you now have direct access to some of the most useful Max for Live things. So again, workflow, I want this stuff, it's right there. I can just go and grab it. Really, really wonderful. But like I said, for me, one big thing is what's going on with clips. Now, if I go look at the clip controls here, over to the left side, if you're familiar with Ableton Live, this is going to be one of the things you look at and go, whoa, this is different. It's laid out differently. It's really more efficient in the way that it's laid out. Some things, like if you go over here and click this little arrow, here's where you find the follow actions and launch modes and stuff like that you really kind of have to just set and then you don't have to look at. And so now you can just hide them. These tabs here are where you're going to find the notes and automation stuff that you used to have to press a button and then it opens up and then you have to close it. And then when they're really open, they take so much space. Now they're just tabs. And then we have the fabulous polyphonic expression section that we'll get to in a little bit. But another cool thing about this, keyboard command option 1, 2, 3. And so it makes it really easy to just navigate around. So, like I said, for me, what is the exciting thing here is over here where we see velocity and probability. And those two things let you take notes and modify the way that they get played. You're not changing the notes. You're not inputting anything different. You're not making multiple clips and then having follow actions play different random things. It just all happens in the clip. So just to make this simple, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually, let me do this so that we zoom back out to see the whole thing. I'm just going to put in little 4 on the floor, and I'll fold it so we just see that. And we just get, you're used to that sound. Everybody knows that sound. And just like with live before, if I select all my kicks, I can grab velocities and drag and change velocities. Gives you the number. You're used to seeing that. But there are these lines going across here now. And what those do is let you decide a range of velocity. Couple things that go with it. One is over to the left, there's a randomize button. Click that, it randomizes your velocities. Go here and change this amount, and it only randomizes by that amount. So you can very easily set up something that you didn't make, and that's the thing that I've always loved about making music with computers, is that it's things that I get to respond. I get to respond to what it is. The range is like, taking that to 11. And so the way that works is if we have a kick, and again, just a metronome with exactly the same velocity level. If I go to velocity range over to the left and just drag, I can drag up or down and it defines a range. So just to show it off, I'm going to drag this and make it quiet. And then I'm going to put the range all the way up. And then you can just hear you get variety in how hard it hits, so that you're not getting the same note every time, and you have shades of gray. You can adjust how much space you want to put in there, how much variation you want in your velocities. Along with that, and I'm actually going to put this back so they're all the same for this next little demo. Along with that, we have probability right below it. And the probability by default is at 100. So whatever you put in there, it's going to play back. No variation in probability. But if you take it down, and I'm going to take it down to just about 75%, then when you play it, there's a 75% chance that the kick's going to fire. Which, probability oftentimes means that it always does it or it never does it. It's probability. Those two things combined, and I'm showing it with drums, but it works for anything that you can put notes into a clip. Those two things combined just increase the perception of humanity that's in the music. It's not rigid. It's got variation that's just happening subtly and naturally, or dramatically and crazily. Is another thing that's quite fun to do. So that's just how it works. But if I go here into a clip and look at what's going on in here, this is just a library clip for the 909 drum kit that comes with Live. And I've gone through here and I've taken, actually, I'm going to grab the original version of this. There we go. I've gone through here and I've leveled all the velocities. So it's just like an old school drum machine. It's just all the same level coming in. And so if you listen to it, it does sound kind of flat. I got nothing against drum machines. I kind of like that flat sort of sound for some things. But what I want to do is just throw some of this variation in there to see how you can make it sound a little bit more human, a little bit more interesting with some of this randomness. First of all, I don't like that ride cymbal, so I'm gonna get rid of that. But what we have is like bass, snare, some percussion stuff, hat. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the kick drum. Now with the kick drum, I don't want to change the velocity too much because I always want the kick there. But just a little bit of subtleties, not a bad thing. What I've found out by doing this for a while is that instead of like taking the velocity range and dragging it up, I really kind of feel like the best way I found to deal with it is put the kick as loud as I would want it to be and then drag the velocity range down. So, if I go find like maybe around 90, trackpad's jumping, and just grab all those kicks, I find like maybe 30, a little less than 30. That's going to give me some variation of the kick, but it's not going to be like coming and going, like it's going to drop out. So there's that. This rim shot and snare, and also this bass drum, it's really kind of a percussion sort of thing. So I'm going to take those, I'm going to drop them down to like almost 40 is what I'm going to do with those. And you see it put a little bit more of range in there. And then for my hats, first off, I think the hats are a little loud. So just select all of them, take them down a little bit. And then for the velocity range for this, I'm going to go all the way to like 55, which is maybe too much, but we'll find out. So that's how fast it is. I got my pattern in there, and then it's just a matter of dragging and typing some numbers. You can change this stuff with the pencil tool, just by dragging with the pencil tool to change the values. It's really intuitive. The other thing that I would want to do to this is I'm going to select the hat, and I'm going to take the probability down to about 70% again, so that the hat isn't firing all the time. And then that's turned into and just getting the hat kind of coming and going like that just in a mix, that's really going to make it stand out. And I think it's going to make it blend a whole lot more. So I'm looking over here now. I got some questions in the chat. Hi to everybody. Demo Beats, great to hear from you. Ken, yes, we are going to have some fun. And so is there a way to randomize the start time of the notes? So in other words, I'm guessing that what you mean by that is like, if at a certain point, does the note start at like the 1, or is it like the 2? Is it like 1 3/16? That's what I'm guessing is the meaning behind, is there a way to randomize the start time of the notes? Aaron may know this. I don't believe there is, but
I have yet to find that random. That would be a really powerful random control.
Yeah, I can tell you this.
Oh, you know what? There is. Let's see. Hold on.
wait, there is. This is one of the things about being a beta tester, is that with betas, you're like, there's not a manual for this yet. So you just got your hands on it, trying everything. Um, I can. Okay, so just a touch of variation. Yeah, you can do that as Demo Beat says. You can do that with a swing. And remember when I said like the grooves are really accessible now? Um, the the grooves are just right in the browser here. I could just search for swing, and there's a ton of them, so I'd have to go through and sort them. But it's just a matter of taking a swing and just dropping it down in the right place, which I'm missing. But it's just a matter of applying the groove to the track, and I just screwed everything up. I think I'm looking. Oh, that's okay. So I actually wasn't looking in the grooves. I got results from everything. So that's why I ended up blowing stuff away and it wouldn't take my groove. There we go. And then you can adjust the timing and the randomness of when the note starts. So I think if you're looking to adjust some start time, one of the best things to do is pull in a groove and just crank up the random, because then that's going to adjust like where it is in relation to the swing. I have no idea how this is going to sound. So you can hear the swing in there. And I think that if you perhaps were doing something slower, then you might get more of a sense of things moving around. But yeah, the humanness, the slop, as you say, is that's definitely possible to do with a groove. And you can make your own grooves too. So you can make something kind of sloppy and then use that and apply it to a clip like this. Yeah, so that's a big thing for me, is having. And by the way, I love the questions. Definitely, somebody says if you're using push, there's a dedicated knob for that. Well, that knob on the push is that's like a global swing. The groove thing is like you can do that clip by clip, or you can come up with one groove and then apply it to a number of different clips.
Something I do is extract a groove from one element, like a drum loop that maybe is played live and is imperfect, but in a way I really like, and I can extract the groove from that and apply it to all of the MIDI clips that are more rigidly drawn in, and then just apply that groove from the drum beat, and it just makes everything feel human.
Yeah, that's a great thing to do. And with the new velocity and probability combined with groove, I'm really happy about this, because frankly, I really like to kind of program beats on the push. And so a lot of times that means they're like right dead on the 16th note, and it can sound a little robotic. Now I can just, like Aaron said, drop in a groove, apply it to the MIDI clip, and then go ahead and do some velocity and probability fiddling around. But that's a really great question. Like I said, we don't know the answers to everything right now, but we'll do the best we can to get you a little something. So let's take a peek at one of the other things about Live 11 that people have some excitement about, and that's the MIDI polyphonic expression. So you probably are familiar with like MIDI expression. You can, aftertouch, where you can press on a note, or release velocity, how you let go of the note, things like that. Polyphonic expression is the ability to take multiple gestural inputs and have the software interpret them. There's a company called Roly which makes the keyboard. There's some other stuff too, but many people are familiar with the Rolly keyboard. And what that does is lets you interact with it in a number of ways. You can push into the keys, you can slide your hands across the keys, slide your fingers across the keys, and that's part of what's going on in terms of input. Now, one thing that you can do with it is just use pressure sensitivity to work with it. If you have a push, like I have sitting right here, when this first came out, people were like, well, great, now I got to go buy an MPE keyboard because I want to use this stuff and there's no other way to do it. But if you have a push, it's going to do a firmware update for you. And when you go into setup, you're going to see a knob now that you twist and it says mono or poly. And you now instantly have a polyphonic expressive MIDI device just because you have the push. And let's take a look at a track that's got a wavetable on it, because there are two instruments off the bat that come with Live 11 that incorporate MPE into the device. It's the sampler and wavetable have the ability to play with this. This is what the synth sounds like. And what we're gonna do is set up something where you can hear this polyphonic individual response. I'm going to go tap on the matrix over here, and you can see there's now two sections that say slide and press. And I'm going to get rid of this one for the moment, and I'm going to go down to pitch bend and just put in something kind of subtle. Oops. Hey, there we go. And so what I get now when I press the key, and you can hear me pressing into it, gives a pitch bend. However, I can like hold a note, and you can hear the low pitch isn't changing, but the high pitch is. And that's what's meant. That's a demonstration of what you could call polyphonic expression. Much more interesting would be to apply it to something else. Like if I go to the oscillator 1 position, then this particular sound now and it's just me playing the note and then pushing into it afterwards. That's really great. I've got a little clip here that's just got some bass notes in it, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to play over the top of that. And not the best thing I've ever done, but it does let me show you what's going on in the clip. So if we go into the MPE tab, we're going to see these lanes that have this polyphonic expression recorded in them. And you can see that both velocity, you can see my pressure is what I'm going for here. And if you roll over a note, it shows you the expression curve for that particular note. And so if we listen to this, I'm actually going to take this first part out and this last part. But if we listen to this, you can hear what's happening by when I press harder. Another thing you can do is select a note. You can see points that you can modify, drag around to change your performance. Or if you go into the pencil tool, you could just go like this. And what you end up with is and so it's a thing that you can do like note by note and change the expressive nature of what the notes sound like, what they're doing. It really opens a lot of doors, and if you do have a Rolly or some other MPA keyboard, I know a lot of people have been waiting for Ableton Live to add it, and this is it. You know, it's in the software now. It's definitely yes. Yes, it is true. Some soft synths are MPE enabled, and Brian is right for the habitual tweaker, a possible recipe for insanity, because you can do it note by note, go through there. Yeah, it's cool. So there's one more thing about clips that I want to show you that is going to be really useful for a lot of people, especially people, you know, who are self-taught and, you know, don't have a music degree, but they love making music and they do good stuff. And that's that you can actually now set scales and clips. Now, if you have push, you know, you can set scales on push. And one thing that's cool about that is that a lot of people who maybe don't know what F Phrygian means went and they set their push to F Phrygian and they wrote a song in a scale they've never heard of before. And that's really cool. They're experiencing music that they maybe wouldn't have been inclined to make. And now that's come into Ableton Live, even without push. So if I go to the left side, right under where it says clip, at the bottom of that section, there's a button that says scale. Turn that on, and then you can pick your scale. So I could set it to F and Phrygian. And it'll show you all the notes, but it'll highlight just the ones that are in that scale. So if you wanted to like write chords that are in a certain scale, a certain key, you could just turn on this little matrix and it'll guide you by showing you like what notes are appropriate for that particular situation. You can also hit a scale button over by the notes, and that'll remove all the notes that aren't in that key and scale, so that it would actually be impossible to hit a note that's not in the same sort of pitch range that you would be working in when you're working in this particular scale. Cool little side note that if you're playing a clip that is in a certain scale, it changes the scale on the push. So you could actually use a clip in Ableton Live to change the key on push. So like if you were playing with a band and in the chorus it modulates to a different key, you could put a dummy clip into the track you're playing on and it would change the key for you and then change it back. It's a little, I've experimented with that and it's a little challenging to really nail it, but it's a lot of fun, and I love anything that helps make push a little bit more accessible, so a little bit more intuitive. Yeah, so that's clips. Now I'm going to turn it over to Aaron to, like I said, show you what might be my favorite feature of Ableton Live 11, which is which is the comping. And if you have any more questions, post them in the chat here. I'm getting comments and questions from both YouTube and Twitch. So just jump right in and I'll reply, or we'll throw it out to try and get an answer to your question.
Cool.
So,
So Jason, if you could just enable screen sharing for me in the Zoom app we got
oh
going here.
yeah, that would be a good plan if we want to actually see you. Let me do it this way. I'm running so much software right now that, yeah, and go in here. There you go. Now you got it.
Cool. All right. Well, so I have a background as a live musician well before I got into computer music. Um, and so my first kind of go at things was on a 4-track cassette recorder, a Tascam 424 recorder, which I still have. And I have a bunch of the tapes from when I was in, I'm thinking I was this is in junior high, which is that's how old I am that I say junior high. My kids call it middle school. So it was like eighth grade, I think I got that thing. And we're making punk rock songs where we had 4 channels and you could overdub 4 times. That was it. And you could get clever. And if you um basically you would bounce, like you could record the first 3 channels and then you would do a recording onto channel 4 with all those 3 plus something new. So maybe it was drums, bass, guitar, and then you'd add synthesizer and record them all over onto channel 4, which would allow you 3 new channels to add. And so this was the whole magic of overdubbing until you finally ran out of dubs you could go back and forth, and you would lose a little fidelity each time. So you'd really get a lo-fi sound when you did a bunch of overdubs this way. But it's addicting because you realized, or I realized, that I could harmonize with myself, or I could like try different things and do a bunch of different kind of attempts at a recording until I got it right, and then move on to the next thing and accompany myself. So it was the original kind of do-it-yourself music machine, the 4-track tape recorder. So that's what's kind of been missing in my computer music life. I worked in other workstations where they had some comping kind of features, but they're really complicated. Like I was a Cubase user for a while, and the comping in there, it was really kind of a complicated thing. And what I love to do is to improvise, and to improvise kind of with the uh, mindset of creating something really tangible musically, really what I would say call crystallized musical ideas. So I'm trying to write a song on the spot. That's a fancy way of saying that. Um, Instead of just kind of cruising everywhere to just just to explore, it's more of like I'm reaching for a melody or a bass line or like something really tangible that I want to repeat. But I like get there via a haphazard way, or trial and error, or happy accidents, or whatever you want to say, or I just let my fancy flow and get to a good idea. So I was really excited. If anybody is familiar with the feature capture in 10 in Ableton Live 10, MIDI capture was kind of that thing I was missing. And I was really excited and still love that feature so much because I could just play and play and play until I got something cool, and then retroactively record that by pressing capture like after I did it, and then it will bring back the last 8 bars whatever. It actually has been capturing all of the MIDI that you've been playing since you have pressed play. So quite a lot of stuff gets recorded kind of in the background. And the capture thing is really great for me. And the reason why that's better than just knowing the part and pressing record is that I don't know what I'm going to play, and I don't know what the best version of the rhythm is yet. I want to mess around with it. And when I feel that it's right, when I know it's right, that's the version I want to have captured, right? But what the old process was kind of like, okay, now I'm going to re-perform that. Like that last thing I did was cool. So now I'm going to stop, press record, and do a perfect performance of that. And inevitably, I would get, I wouldn't do as well. I would play something stiffer and a little less cool on the record. So that's why capture was so cool, because I could just play until I felt like, yeah, that was it. Press capture, there it is. So for instance, let me show you capture. And some of you are probably really familiar with it. And if not, I just want to make sure you see what it can do. So I here, yes. Oh, sorry. I thought I heard someone saying something. If let me just move this out of the way. Cool. So I have a drum loop that's from my sample pack called Boom Bap Breaks Volume 1. And it's just a live drum loop that I played and recorded for these packs. And I have a synth instrument that I built for this presentation that's just a couple of operators in an instrument rack with some processing, really just some basic stuff, filter, compressor, utility, and reverb that I have currently turned off. So that sound is this. Okay, that's a MIDI. I'm playing a MIDI keyboard to trigger those notes. Here's the beat. So without having pressed record, I can just start to improvise over this. And if I maybe decide, yeah, I liked what happened there, I press capture. Now, because I took my time pressing capture, it brought in kind of a one note from the very, very end of what I did. But if I drag it out a little on the timeline and drag my cursor back, all the stuff I just played was recorded. So something that I was thinking about is, well, then, MIDI, would I end up using the comping feature as much because I've already kind of gotten into this process of capturing, and it occurred to me that they work great together, and it's totally something that they work really well together as a concept. So I can go drag out that huge performance and right click on the channel, and I'm gonna say insert return track. Oh, excuse me. I don't know what I just meant to do that. I want to insert take lane. It's new. Insert take lane. I'm gonna do another one, and I'm just gonna chop up my performance and drag it onto a couple of take lanes. So my goal is going to be to take the best stuff I did and populate the actual final version here at the top with just those parts. So I can listen to the first stuff I was playing by highlighting this speaker here and pressing play. the second performance. So just off the top of my head, I would say that I liked this section. So I'm going to highlight that and press enter. Puts that straight to the top lane here. And I liked the fill from this first take. So I'm going to hit enter there and press play on my performance. And it's a really quick way of kind of hybrid capture slash comping that I'm going to use all the time. I mean, this is really what I've been waiting for, because this enables me to just jam away, decide, okay, I just caught fire. Now I'm cooking with grease. That last like 8 bars was cool, but it wasn't ever perfect, or one of those versions was cool, and the fill from that's all possible now, that I can just play as confidently as I want, knowing that I can really clean up quickly afterwards and collect the best stuff and create one continuous line that really seems like one performance, quickly and easily and in a flowing way. That's what's magic for me about it, is it's a musical creative upgrade for me. Now I can just kind of be really whimsical about my performing, knowing I can go in and attack the editing in such a quick and focused way. Super cool.
Speaking of that, Aaron, do you want to
Yeah.
show how you can do it with the pencil tool? You know, you can
Absolutely.
just like
Yeah.
swipe, because for me this is just like, wow, that's intuitive. You know, you
Yeah, I
just
mean, just
swipe.
by highlighting with the pencil tool, it puts it in the top line. Um, Sometimes I don't use the pencil tool because it's such a quick, it commits right away. So sometimes I want to like kind of grab first and then, send it up to the line. But that's what's so cool about the flexibility of the system, is it already has, there's a few ways to do it. And the pencil tool is so quick, because if you have, let's say, 5 lanes of stuff, um, like here's something fun that you can do. Let's take this beat. I'm going to move it over. I'll just move it right here and move the loop brace over. So I'm going to go to where I have the sample pack. Oh no, that's not it. Yeah, and there's like a bunch more beats in there. And so if I go over here and say, insert take lane, I can just add more similar beats with maybe different fills or variations. So here's this one. Okay, so I'm just going to bring in a couple random ones. We'll duplicate that. I'm going to create another lane. And here's something kind of fun with using loops, or in this case of these beats that I made. If you want to take some of the ambience away, like the reverb, you can change the way that the warping is happening here, where instead of what it does is it plays each sample forward and then a bit of a reverse to kind of smooth and crossfade everything together. But if you switch it to just forward and you shorten the envelope, then you get a much. Let me highlight that. A a tighter sound with less you remove the tail. So I'm gonna make one like that. All right. And then I'm gonna go one more take lane, and I'll just drag my original beat down to that one. Just so we have some stuff to play with. So now I've got 3 take lanes of sample based stuff that I grabbed off of my loop library. Um, and I can take the pencil and I can go through and just listen, to sections, or, I could just do a bit of randomness here and build something that grab the fill from there, the beginning of this, second part of that, and then this fill. And then check it out. Which is a great way of making, I mean, that's the way I've always worked with jungle beats and kind of some fast drum and bass amen kind of loops, is chopping them up in this way, but in a really laborious, long-winded way of doing it, or just by hand. This is quick. This is crazy. You could bring in 10 different beats and just paint away, listening through for the cool fills or what you want, or you could kind of use wide brush strokes like I just did and kind of randomly build yourself something based on how it looks. It's fun. But that's a couple really useful applications of the comping feature. One thing I'll definitely do is with live instruments, like bass lines, for instance, I'll just record away take after take. I'll play you through 8 times, and then you just kind of know, maybe you played some of the best stuff in the last take, but that first fill you did just because you were loose, was the coolest one. And that's what I've been missing in my whole life is like the ability to pull in that little extra part that I remembered I did something cool like in the beginning. I see a question coming through. Is there a way that comping works automatically as you're recording a track where it creates new lanes automatically? Yes. So if I record audio in on a channel and I've got the loop brace set up, as it loops around, it creates the lanes, or it creates the, let's see here if I can, I will use audio from my MIDI here. Audio channel in from the instrument rack. One thing I'm going to do is press show take lanes and then just hit record here. So it just keeps adding more lanes and more lanes. Super nice. That's like the easiest, best part. If you're a live musician and instrumentalist and you can just finally just plug in and rock and feel it out for a few runs and then get this nice visual layout and find that thing you did in the beginning, and then you kind of got it a little more organized toward the end, so you mix them together, and I think that's what I've been missing. So for me, this is it just feels like the potential is huge. It's more than maybe getting a new toy, a new plug-in or instrument. This is like here now you can let all your multiple personalities sort of run rampant and capture them and collect it and make sense out of it in a musical, logical, quick, and production savvy way. So it's really
I think
cool.
that's true. It's like, looking back, Live 10 really felt like kind of like a gift to like the longtime users. It's like all the things you've been asking for, now they're there. You know, Live 11 totally feels like this is an invitation to be more creative. It's like all the stuff
Yeah.
you can just flow. And I think it's worth mentioning that, you know, Aaron showed it. You can do this with MIDI and audio. You know, he was comping MIDI tracks, he was comping audio tracks. Um, you can link any track actually. It's not like you can only link these comp tracks, the take lanes. You can actually pick any two tracks and link them to do like editing together. So if there's something, I don't know, there's five vocal tracks and you want to
Oh yeah.
like shorten all of them. You know, you just link the tracks and any editing move you do on one happens on the other ones. That's a really great like time saving feature when you're mixing.
That's huge. Track linking is huge because I'm always doing things twice or four times in a row, and that's annoying. You're gonna just like shorten five tracks. But if you could link up five channels and then just do the fade out on the end of every clip all at once, just grab them all. That's a really quick and tidy thing. Here's a really great question. For each new lane, it must be creating new audio file. Check it out. You can just drag out the original one. Is that right? Let me see. I think. I think it's one continuous file.
Really?
Uh, let me
I
see.
just answered the question of like I think they're separate files.
Oh, maybe you're right. No, look,
No, no,
if you
it
drag
is.
any of them, if you
You're
drag any
right.
of them out, I think they're all in there. They're all kind of like um, clip maps versions of this master file that you're making. That's my understanding. Because when I pulled out this second take lane, it just keeps going, right? This is everything, looks like. That's the whole shebang right here.
Yeah.
But it wraps based on the loop brace. So that's a really cool thing. And then once you're ready to go, I believe you just, as you'd expect, you just freeze and flatten that mug and you're good to go. And then it's just one file that is what you would expect, the length of your, that you set it to, with no hiding background files there. But when you're working with the comp, it's still this non-destructive thing. It's still a long file, which is cool.
Yeah, very cool. That's great. Anything more you want to show about the comping?
Um, really, I was just excited. When I was thinking about why would I use comping for MIDI, and when I got the gist of how well the capture and comping work together, it's kind of like supercharges the capturing. That was the really exciting thing for me. The audio capturing, I think, is awesome, but kind of self-explanatory in that we can all start imagining what we do with our own instruments or what we've. I mean, if you're a vocalist, you could start off with la la la, kind of get the pitches right and just keep going until you work in your lyrics and repeating it until you're like, oh, that was kind of cool, and keep repeating it and just perform one long take and then go chop it back up to work, be the best moments. So like if you do something cool, repeat it like four times even, and one of those is going to work, and then move on to the next idea. And that's a different way of writing music, or improvising, because you're kind of thinking it with the end in mind. Like, wow, if I can do my takes just all in this big giant kind of flow, then I don't have to worry about, was that the perfect take? Was that the perfect take? I can just kind of perform it and then go back with my producer hat on and chop it up into the best of
I think it's a
version.
that's
Yeah.
a great way to put it because it's totally a different hat.
Yeah.
That's that home recording is just like wonderful because now you're hearing all this music that people weren't releasing before because they have the technology at home to do it and capture it. But it's totally like the artist hat and the producer hat are two totally opposite things. And so to be able to set up the technology so it just happens and you can just step away from it and
Yeah.
just do your thing, that's just yeah, it's genius.
Yeah, like I find that quite often I will like lose the artist, like okay, the performing artist in me does the cool thing, right? And then the producer's like, okay, that's the thing. I want to replay that and record it perfectly now. And that amount of intention and kind of like the producer in me almost squeezes the life out of the musician in me at that moment, to where then I'm like, okay, and I press that big red button for record, and it's blinking in my face, and I always play the line just less. It's not awesome. It's way more pedestrian. Whereas if I feel like it's like dance, like no one's watching, it's like play music like no one's listening, or like like it doesn't matter. It's not the final, but maybe it is. And that to me is the magic aspect of it, is that I can kind of go for it and like try a trick that might land me on my head, but it also might be the coolest bass line I couldn't actually play twice, and I got it. I captured it, and
Yeah.
that's exciting. So that's kind of where I'm heading with this. I'll be using these things I just demoed capture wise like all day with my own music.
Nice. So we also both of us just kind of threw some music together using, just kind of like a grab bag of a grab bag of Ableton Live, you know. And hold on a second. Yeah, I'm actually gonna try to. Well, I've got you pinned, so I'm gonna just take over.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna just go into this little track that I made. I'll just play it, and then I'll talk about like how I did the stuff, because like I said, I was just kind of like, how many of these new things can I use? Because so far we've just talked about workflow, but of course there is a ton of things that have been added in terms of effects and things like that you can make really great sounds with. Um, if we go and look, well, no, you know what? I'm just gonna. It's like a minute 50. I'm just gonna play it, and then I'll go talk about it. Okay, so that's just a short little thing. If you if you don't follow him on social media, Aaron does these great little 1 minute jams, which are just exactly what they sound like, and they're really fun. So I thought I would challenge myself to do a little 1 minute jam, and it got to be 2 minutes long, um, which tends to happen. But yeah, what I set out to do was to just try to do a bunch of stuff. Um, one of the main one of the main sounds in here is this little keyboard thing, which is actually a couple of tracks, some mellow vibes. And it's got a nice sort of random fill. And how I did it, random feel, and how I did it was that I used that probability thing. I like played more notes than I wanted to use. So instead of just like playing, a chord once, I played it over like two or three different octaves, and then I set the probability really low. So some note was gonna play, but I didn't know what the note was. And so that just added a nice variation to it. And then everything is running through this new device, which is called spectral time. And the thing about spectral time is that it's essentially a delay that's working. It's kind of like pulling it apart in a frequency sort of way. I don't know. Aaron, do you have an explanation of what exactly the spectral time does?
It's like grain related. I
Yeah.
gotta mess with it some more to really kind of get a feel for it. But like basically the whole grain
Yeah.
concept is just, I mean, it's like granular, or it's like in the warp modes you can get that same kind of sound, but it's a lot smoother with this. And
Yeah.
it just basically cuts it into a million little pieces and then crossfades them all in
Yep.
different ways, that you can tweak.
Yeah, and you
And
have
yeah, it's
some
beautiful.
controls in here, like the spray mode is like it goes around that little cut that you made and randomly picks some stuff. The tilt says, do I want to do this more to the high frequencies or the low frequencies? And so, it just kind of takes. And then, of course, there's a dry, wet, and a feedback. Oh, and it's getting grainy. Oh, but I didn't see anything happen. I was getting kind of excited that it sounded bad because there are these new things that uh, are built into Live 11 that are really cool. Um, if we look up here, you can see the CPU meter actually has more detail in it now. It tells you like what's the current use and the average use. Um, you also, on the session view, you can see the CPU per track. So if your CPU is peaking and you don't know why, you can look at the tracks and see which one is doing it. Right next to it, the box that is black right now, that will actually pop up and show either a CPU warning or if it's having a problem reading from disk, so like playing an audio file off the disk. So it gives you a lot of information. Um, I really like it when things don't work, so you can show it off and figure out how to fix them. But so that's one thing on that track. Uh, Up on the house bass, I have this cool new device that's called the phaser flanger. It does a phaser flanger and a doubler, and that's what's going on this bass. Is I'm just using the doubler, but it's got some frequency variation built into it and some feedback. It's just so thick. I think I also put it down on one of these other tracks, but it's really really thick and rich and nice.
And that and
It's
that replaces the stock phaser and stock flanger from
yeah,
10. Yeah.
Yeah, the design of it is just wow. This sound is like a whole other level than the previous ones. It's just really really great. I tried just because I added some VSTs to see if they were going to crash the software, and they didn't. This is a great little orchestral pack that comes from Spitfire Audio, and I wanted to mention that because when 11 comes out, it's going to include some strings and I believe some horns too, and they're being recorded, produced by Spitfire Audio. Which, if you're interested in orchestral kind of sounds, they're really kind of at the top of the game now, and so it's really exciting that they're partnering with Ableton to get that out there. But that's what made for this whole kind of Barry White 1970s disco kind of middle part. Well, except not if it's just the bass being soloed. You know, that sort of thing, combined with a new device that's based around recordings of voices. One thing that this actually shows off is something about the racks. If you've used Ableton Live for a while, you've been like, why can I only have 8 macros? That's insane. Can I have more macros? Now you can have more macros. If we look up here on this track, you can see that I have a device that has 8 macros. I keep underestimating. I have a device that has 16 macros, and you can add or subtract macros just by using the plus or minus sign. So again, if you have something that you just want one knob, you don't have to have like 7 empty macros anymore. You can just have one big knob, or you can have 8 macros and go ahead and use that, and that's just awesome. The other thing you can do with macros is that they all have a built-in random button now. So you can just hit random and let it shuffle your stuff around, and then go ahead and see what it sounds like. You know, it's got a whole different sound than what it had when I had set it on purpose. You can also take...
You can save the good ones.
Exactly. You can take snapshots of macros. So let's say I like this. I think this is a really cool setting. Right here now we have... Let me see if I can show this in like a zoomed in kind of view, because it's kind of small. There we go. So right below the on button and the macro button, there's a little button that's supposed to look like a camera. And what that is it does snapshots. So if I like this particular setting, I can click on it. I'll name it variation 1. Of course, I can rename it whatever I want, or this is good. And then that information has been stored. Maybe I think I might want one where I play with danger on the feedback of the delay and just like get it up there. I might want one where I have a lot more going on with this little section here is controlling the phaser flanger device. So I'll do that, bunch of feedback. And then now it sounds like this, which is a little different. Ooh. I think I like that better.
I like that one, yeah.
So I would do another snapshot. Oops, sorry. I'd do another snapshot. I name this one, This Is Better. And so if I hit the save button now, those settings are saved with the rack. You can do this with any rack. You can do it with an instrument rack. You can do it with an effect rack. You can do it with a drum rack. Anything that's a rack now, you can save snapshots, and it's great because it's basically you're saving patches, but you're saving patches for a rack, and they're right inside the device. If I just hit the save button here, next time, in fact, I'm going to hit the save button because that "this is better" is just like too good. Next time you hit the save button, yes, I want to overwrite it. There you go. Now I load that into any other session, and it has that great setting in there as a preset. So gotta love that. That one's just wonderful. And so I've used a bunch of other stuff throughout here that comes with it. Down here under the wobbly, let me get this back so you can see the whole live. There's a new device that came out. It's called Pitch Loop 89, which is another thing that slices up sound into little pieces and then lets you loop the pieces. It's got a vibrato and feedback. You can set up some random variation. It creates a nice complex sort of sound. I don't have vocals to run through this, but I've heard it used on vocals, and it sounds really creative and really interesting. Probably it might be a little hard to hear because I really kind of messed up this this particular section to start with, but I don't know, you know what? I think through doing this, I've like really improved this song. Cause now the beginning sounds like this. Okay, maybe not.
It's cool though.
It's like you always want to think that it's brilliant, but I don't really think so now. The last thing that I do want to mention is on this where are we at? The icy track here. There's a new reverb which is just killer. There you go. And if you've had the suite with Max for Live, then you have seen the convolution reverb. Convolution reverb is great. You know, all sorts of IRs that you can use to get some really realistic sounds. A lot of things from Max for Live seem to have been just incorporated into Live 11. And this particular reverb is actually a combination of a convolution reverb and just a basic digital reverb. You have like the convolution over on this side, and you can go through here and pick your plates or, you know, whichever one you're going for. I wonder if they have bigger spaces. You know, in the convolution, I always go for the Swedish nuclear reactor, but it doesn't look like it's in there unless I'm just missing it. But the cool thing is that you can have your convolution reverb here, you can have a digital reverb here, and then here you can blend them. You know, you can say serial where this one actually runs into that one. So one reverb runs into another, parallel, so they both are happening and you can hear them. And then there are these different algorithms that are specifically for the digital side, and convolution means you're only doing the convolution side. So you can split it so it's two different reverbs. You could use one or the other. You can have them both running but separate, or you can have one running into the other. And then what I did for this particular track is that I turned on the freeze so that, you know, the reverb is frozen, so everything kind of runs through that sort of envelope, that sort of sonic space. You can also have a freeze that adds content to it. So instead of just being frozen, you can modify the freeze as it goes on by playing new content into it. So I love this. I I don't know about you, but for me, reverb is kind of like my stumbling block. It's like I almost wish that I had just like one reverb and that's the only one I could use because, there's so many great reverbs out there and it's always a challenge to get exactly the right sound. And I'm really liking this one cuz there's variations just in the one package. So, it's nice. Yeah. So you got a little something to play, Aaron?
Well, let's see here. Um, you covered a lot of the cool things.
Sorry.
Well, that's no, it was great, awesome, and I love seeing all this stuff so many different ways. One thing I wanted to maybe dip back on and just talk about for a second is the rack macro states as a way of saving presets. Um, you could create an instrument. I'm just make a new MIDI channel here.
Why
Oh,
don't you go ahead and share your
right. Let me
screen?
share
Yeah.
my screen. That would help, wouldn't it? And share. Um, so if I go over to bring in like an operator, oops, come on, right. And I group it to a rack, okay, and expose the macro section. I'm going to get rid of this little view here. Oops, what am I doing? There we go. And I can just start assigning some things to the macros. Things that I would probably, want to adjust to make a few variations of one bass. Like for instance, I do that a lot where I'll make a bass. I'm going to make one right now really quickly. So I'm going to drop this down, add a little bit of shaper, and we'll make it wobble around a little bit, add LFO to the filter. And put the filter on a macro. Let's put time on a macro here. I'm gonna, just do a couple things. The things that I would do normally, and then maybe copy the device onto a new channel and make some changes for a whole different version. And I would have to, in terms of the project, I would have to deal with those different channels, right? But in this kind of paradigm, I could adjust things. And when I say, that I like something, then I can make a variation. And like you were doing is, naming them, let's say bass one. And then I can just, without being afraid of kind of losing track or needing to leave breadcrumbs so I could find my way back to that sound, it's just here, so I can just go and kind of be a little more cavalier about the changes that I'm making. And let's say I liked that one, I didn't end up with it with another variation that I love. But if I hit new and save that, then this is kind of like the prep work I would do before I got busy writing a tune. I would spend a little time getting not just one version of this bass sound, but 6 versions of this bass sound, all in this nice single rack space, so that I can then change them up. Sometimes a really good technique for when I'm writing is just to create a bass line, and then after you play it, let's say twice, change out the sound. Same MIDI, same performance, totally different sound. You get a lot more mileage out of that MIDI because it's familiar and the rhythm of it is familiar and the melody's familiar, but then the sound is fresh. So that's a technique a lot of producers use. And you can basically stretch out one idea and really give it kind of more dimensionality and more parts and more, just more to it. So this is a quick way of coming up with all those variations, and you could use the random um, functionality to help AI assist you to create a whole bunch of variations and just decide which is the best, and then start writing with all your changes already made. Sometimes I have trouble finding like an alternate version of the bass I'm working on. Like, I need just another cool one of these. And this is it. This is kind of like a factory for cranking those out. So that's something that I think I'm going to be using on a daily basis as well is, you know, 15, 20 minutes of sound design prep before I get started instead of making one bass, make like 6 versions of it all pretty quickly. And then I can flip between them as I'm writing to see which the winner is going to be, moment to moment. So, that's less of a audio example, but I felt like that was just a cool aspect to dial in a little further on, and how it can be used for writing, specifically for writing new music.
That's a really great thing because it's another example of like workflow improvement. Not like you said, not having 6 tracks, not switching between things, just click. And if you go into like the keyboard mapping mode, like
Yeah.
this command, um, you can. Oh no, not macros, but Command K or up there. Yeah,
Hmm.
you can see you can actually map those things to keys.
Yeah,
You
that's
can
great.
map them to MIDI, so you don't even need to like go over and click on it. He could just be playing the bass line and then just like tap some keys on the keyboard to like flip between them. And there is I already saw somebody came out with a Max for Live device that will sort of warp between them or randomly pick one. So you can make a bunch of these macro variations and just the lots of sort of endless options of things that you could do with it.
Yeah, I love it. I love the macros. That's a cool thing because a lot of times I will wander too far away from my original cool idea without having left those breadcrumbs down, or like a return path. So like I'll create the greatest bass sound and I love it, and then I'll make a few more moves and it's gone.
Yeah.
It's too late. Like I've combined some interesting things, but then I can't get back to whatever was so great 5 minutes ago. And this is the trick. So you can just kind of save as, and have all these variations and versions, and then you don't even have to be so critical while you're doing it. You can
Yeah.
just let it happen, and then go back later and say, "Oh, number 3 is the best. That's the best one." Um, but I don't think I had the clarity or the ability to do that, or I would have had to just make 5 channels, 5 whole separate tracks to express something like that. Like, oh, I'm gonna duplicate that and make another MIDI clip for another version. And I feel like this is just really narrowing that focus down to being able to come up with a bunch of great variations on one thing, in one place.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're coming up to the end of our time. If you got any more questions, just like drop them into the chat right now. We see if we can like answer them on the way out the door. And I Yeah, we don't have like an official release date or anything like that when it's coming out. It's not going to be too long. I'm really enjoying the beta, not having too many problems with it or anything like that. But there's like more to come of things that are going to be added to this. So we'll see when it particularly comes out. There is some integration with push too, like accessing those macro racks and things like that. Um, uh, and we got a question: are there any improvements or changes to the sampler? The sampler now has polyphonic expression. So just like with the wavetable I showed off, you can do polyphonic expression with the sampler, which is gonna be just like exponential increase in the potential of that. If you think what you can do with expression with a sampler, how you can assign it and do things with it, that's really going to change what people can do with the sampler. Yeah. So, any last words, Aaron?
I'm like looking at sampler right now just to make sure there isn't anything else under the hood. But yeah, I mean that's like one of my absolute favorite instruments ever is sampler. Um, and so I would have definitely perked up if there was some real big changes. But I think that the polyphonic expression is the new thing. I have yet to really dig in. I don't have a controller. I mean, I have push, but I really now I want one of those Raleigh seabed. You know, now I'm definitely curious about what that feels like to play. Um, but we'll have to see. And that feels like the area that's the newest and that will expand as people see that it's now possible. Like the companies that
Yeah.
make third party synths will all start to click in with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just for wrapping up, I wanted to like give Aaron a little time. Anything you want to promote? I know you got a new Vibe Squad release that just came out.
Yeah, I have a new Vibe Squad album called Empathy Waves. It's out on all the various streaming platforms and on my Vibe Squad Bandcamp. I have a new project called Backpacked that's more of a lo-fi kind of J Dilla boom bap, moody, melodic kind of project. So it's me very much related to the stuff that if you're familiar with my music that it will be familiar. But there's a few EPs that I've already released, and I'm almost done with a new one. Um, and then I've been doing a bunch of live stuff, calling them 1 minute loop jams. And I'm about to finish my 10th one of those, and I'm going to release. They're each, it's 10 minutes worth of music. So a little micro EP of these little short songs. And then you're the first to hear, but I'm going to move on to the next level of the concept for me. And I'll just leak that out right now that it's going to be called the 2 minute one man band, which is going to be a little bit more song related oriented, and it's going to be a 2 minute compositions where I'm playing everything but a little less loopy and a little more uh, you know just multi-track live music. So that's going to do a 10 pack of those tunes and see where the next thing
There you
goes, because
go.
it's fun to make. It's a really fun concept, and I like sometimes just creating a confine to work within, and then I can kind of crank out a bunch of stuff because there's
Yeah.
less decisions to make. I only got a minute. It's got to be like this or something, So that's kind of where I've been at. So those are my
Yeah.
things that I'm doing lately. I'm making a bunch of videos, so you can follow me on YouTube. Aaron Holstein is the channel name.
Yeah. And I've released some stuff recently under the name Brand Name. Brand Name Media is the YouTube. I also did a video for every song. This was the way that I kept myself from not freaking out before the election, was just like working on music 24 hours a day, and doing a bunch of videos. And it's a lot of it done in Ableton Live, but it doesn't sound typically live. Again, more songs politically related, lyrics, things like that. But if you're interested in that sort of thing, Brand Name Media, you can find it on YouTube or on Bandcamp. And also, as always, I'm going to push the audio and music classes at the Santa Fe Community College. Had some students show up in the chat, some former students that do some great stuff. And so, starting in January, a new semester starts. It's all going to be online. And the last couple semesters have proven that it works really well. If you want to learn music software like Ableton Live, you having it on your computer and me having it on my computer and hooking up in a classroom situation really, really works. So check it out. I posted a link to the classes in the event page on Facebook. So if you go back to that, you can follow a link to see what the classes are. All right. That was fun. I hope you all had as much fun as we did. Great to see you.
Thanks, Jason, for putting this together, and thanks everybody for logging in. And great questions. Hope to see everybody around.
Yeah, and hook up with the Santa Fe Ableton user group on Facebook. No matter where you are, we're going to start having some more regular events, and hope to see you there.
Awesome.
All right.